Hello, in this video, we will introduce objects and classes in chapter 9. You have learned selections, loops, functions, and arrays. These are the fundamental skills in programming. However, these features are not sufficient for developing large-scale software systems. This chapter begins the introduction of object-oriented programming, which will enable you to develop large-scale software systems effectively. We're going to look at the objects and classes. Objects are created from classes. You define classes for objects. Object-oriented programming involves programming using objects. An object represents an entity in the real world that can be distinctly identified. For example, a student, a geometric object, circle, rectangle, almost anything you can imagine. Even a student loan can be viewed as an object. Object has unique state, behavior. The state of an object, also known as properties or attributes, is represented by data fields with their current values in the data fields. A circle object, for example, has data field radius. So one object may have radius 5, the other object has radius 3. So every object has its own radius. A rectangle object, for example, has the data fields width and height. The behavior of an object, also known as actions, is defined by functions. To invoke a function on an object is to ask the object to perform an action. For example, you may define function named getArea and getPerimeter for circle objects. A circle object may invoke a getArea to return its area and invoke getPerimeter to return its perimeter. You may also define the set radius function to set a new radius for the object. Objects of the same type are defined using a common class. A class is a template, blueprint, or contract that defines what an object's data fields and functions will be. An object is an instance of a class. You can create many instances of the class. Creating an instance is referred to as instantiation. The terms objects and instance are often interchangeable. So let's look at this diagram here. We have the class. From the class, you can create the objects. This is the objects. This is 1, 2, 3. So the class is like a recipe, and so this objects are created from the recipe. So you can think about it, this is the relationship between objects. Class is definition, and the objects are coming from the definition. So now let's look at the code for defining a class. In C++, we use variables to define data fields. And we use functions to define the behavior. So this is the class circle here. You must have the public. So to denote this, all these features now are available to the public. So this is data field radius, and these are the functions. get area, get perimeter, set radius. Now, please note that also here in the middle here, these are special functions. They are called constructors. They have the same name as the class name. So they don't have a return type, no, not even void. So all this here, these are constructors. They're used to construct objects. This is the UML diagram, the class diagram here, to describe the class graphically. This is the name of the class. This is the data field of the class here. It's radius. What's the data type? It's double. These are constructors. This is no I constructor. This is the constructor with the specified radius. These are 3 functions. So these are the objects. This is the graphic notation to describe the class without looking at the implementation of the class. From this UML diagram, you can see, hey, what is the name of the class? What are the constructors and functions in the class? We're going to talk about all this more in the next video. See you on the next video.